Welcome in everyone to a instant reaction of the Seahawks victory today over the Minnesota Vikings 26-0. I got Mookie Alexander joining me today, and me and Mookie are going to break this all down for you guys after this. But first thing I got to ask you, Mookie, how'd you feel after this game?
I felt pretty happy that they finally got a shutout, because there have been a couple of games in recent years where they've almost gotten a shutout and didn't actually get it. Well, this time they made sure that they held another team to a goose egg. I'm just glad that they get to play a quarterback that bad, because they're not going to do it again the rest of the season. All these people who are gassing up Max Brosmer all week, including Steve Mariucci's bold prediction of 485 yards passing, I want all of you to line up and please apologize for the flagrant lying you have been doing over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to ask, Mookie. And so everyone will get into this game just after this.
Inside the 15, look, throws, fires to the end zone, ball is caught, touchdown, Seahawks! Dunking it over the bar is Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's on the run, Wentz, 40, pushes the man, 35, look at him go! He's down to 20, 15, he's gonna go! He is gonna go! Touchdown, Seahawks! Oh my word! A 67-yard run!
All right, everyone. So let's get into this topic today, Mookie, on the Seahawks win. But the best way I can describe it, the defense carried the win. The offense has concerns. And the worrisome thing for me, Mookie, is this has been kind of almost 3 weeks. Like even the Titans game to an extent. I know we won that game and it was 30-24 and we played really well. But it's been this defense that really has pushed that kind of narrative forward. The offense since that Rams game, in my opinion, has struggled, and Clint Kubiak has struggled. And it's really coming in the passing game, and I think it's just there's almost too much of a reliance on JSN. I know you made a tweet or post on Twitter about it saying, like, this team needs Torrey Horton back ASAP. And I think that's becoming more and more prevalent because they haven't figured out how to get Rashad Shaheed involved. Cooper Kupp he's helping, but he's not the player that you need him to be. They need Torrey Horton to come in and help unlock this offense in a way. And with today, again, the defense, I don't know what more you need to say about this group other than Mike Macdonald has constructed probably maybe the best front seven we have seen in Seahawks history as a collective.
Yeah, the defense was practically flawless. I mean, they did everything that they should do against a team that was missing its starting left tackle, its starting left guard, its starting quarterback, although honestly, J.J. McCarthy looked like prime Peyton Manning compared to Max Brosmer. I mean, McCarthy likely would have been bad anyway, but I don't think he could have been worse than what Brosmer showed, because as well as Seattle's defense played, some of those throws were also just straight misses without pressure in his face. Like there were absolutely plays that Jordan Addison and others could have had if the ball was accurate and a better quarterback would exploit them. But it happened. Brosmer was basically as bad as Skylar Thompson and Ryan Lindley and some of the other Seahawks backup quarterbacks they played over the years. It's just that it feels good to not let a backup quarterback, and in this case, more or less the backup to the backup, because remember, Brosmer was QB3 to start the year, not have them look competent. I mean, it was wildly inept. And that pick six has to be the worst pick six of the season. That looked like something straight out of the Will Levis playbook. Like Tank Lawrence, unbelievable performance. Again, he has exceeded expectations, and I think he is absolutely justified staying throughout the duration of his contract at this rate, because it is a 3-year deal. But a sack is a lot better than what he did with option B, and Ernest Jones took full advantage. So The run defense, I don't really care about the garbage time explosives that Jordan Mason got, because there was a point where they had 10 carries for 10 yards. So this run defense remains amazing. The pass rush continues to get home without blitzing. And when they do blitz, I mean, Drake Thomas in space, maybe a little more of a weak spot, but Drake Thomas going downhill is one of the most fun players to watch. I mean, he just wants to go down there. Maybe you got to give him kind of like Cam Chancellor. We made the Flintstones reference. He's got a club in his hand like Bam Bam. Well, Drake Thomas has got a little bit of Bam Bam in him. Not Cam Chancellor, but the cartoon character. He just clubs people. It is insanely entertaining. So this defense continues to show that at the very least, they can crush bad offenses. I mean, the Titans might have gotten 24 points, but remember, a touchdown came off a punt return. So it was 17 points. The Titans didn't even clear 300 yards that game. Cam Ward had to do a whole lot to even look, semi-decent. He had to do a whole lot just to get the Titans offense moving. Brosmer didn't do anything to get the Vikings offense moving. So the offensive side of the ball, though, I thought that the offense would perform a little bit better than they actually did. And you and I were talking about it before we got on air. Ryan Grubb did a better job against this Vikings defense, which is more or less the same. It's definitely the same schematically, even with some of the personnel changes. But last year's Vikings defense was better, much better. This is a middling Vikings defense by DVOA, whereas last year they were in the top 5. And Geno had a really good game, even with the interceptions. And they didn't even try to run the ball in that afternoon. They carried it. I think Walker and Charbonnet combined didn't have 10 carries. So for Kubiak and John Benton, I think this was disappointing on their parts, the respective sides of the coaching staff, as far as preparedness for what Brian Flores is going to do. I mean, it's not like Flores is some podunk defensive coordinator. He's really good at what he does, but you should have expected the games that they were going to run up front and the sim pressures and the blitzes. They did not look the slightest bit prepared, at least in the first half. The second half, Darnold didn't get sacked, didn't really get pressured all that much. But if the Vikings had a reasonably competent offense, that might have been Seattle trailing at the half instead of up 13-0. And this is a continuation of my belief that without Jackson Smith and Jigba dominating the targets, this is a below average passing attack. So in this instance, they actually shut JSN down. 2 catches for 23 yards. So I think we could probably kiss the Calvin Johnson record goodbye unless he drops 250 on somebody over the next couple of weeks. So forget JSN 2K. That dream is gone because that was the one thing you couldn't afford is a game like 80 yards, fine, but 23 yards, forget it. But I'm happy with the running games, continuing to pick up explosives here and there. If Harrison Smith didn't grab Kenneth Walker by the arms, he might have had an 80-yard touchdown the first play of the second half. He's running with purpose. He's not bouncing it needlessly as often. And he continues to be used as a pass catcher. So I'm liking that. Charbonnet had a couple of good runs in the second half. And, of course, the touchdown was easy pickings. Shout out to Nick Callerup, by the way, for his blocking job on Byron Murphy. They're Byron Murphy, not ours, of course. And my bold prediction is I don't think Saubert comes back from IR. I think that's Callerup's job moving forward. And Saubert's had his time as a veteran, but Callerup looks like he could be Saubert of the future for the Seahawks in heavier personnel. So I don't think Sam Darnold played particularly poorly, even with the stat line looking ugly. I don't think that he had a lot of bad moments. The fumbling on the sacks has got to stop, though. I mean, he has fumbled on about half of his sacks this year. And that's a problem. And he continues to commit turnovers deep in his own territory. But in terms of like missed throws or shaky actual decision-making, I didn't see a ton of that. There were passes batted at the line. There were a couple of plays like Barner almost turned a drop into an interception. But the Vikings defense, for the most part, seemed to figure out the Seahawks offense, passing offense. But it just didn't matter. I mean, 26-0. The game was realistically over after the Ernest pick six. Seattle could have picked up no first downs the rest of the game, and they would have won. That was how easy it was for Seattle's offense as far as bare minimum expectations. But moving forward against better defenses, so not really Atlanta, although they've got a respectable pass rush, not more than respectable, very potent pass rush. But like the Rams rematch, the Colts have got a decent defense. Against better defenses, even if they don't run the same stuff that Flores does, because Flores is a very unique defensive coordinator with how blitz heavy he is, I am a little concerned about this offense starting to show the cracks as far as the passing game is concerned. And at the moment, A.J. Barner is the second best receiving option for the Seahawks. And while I love AJ Barner, that really can't be happening because now you got JSN and then Barner, and then who's your next best receiver? And unfortunately, he's on injured reserve.
Yeah, Mookie, you covered a lot there. And the thing you said about Callerup's actually quite hilarious because I said that I was in the 12 Talk Pods, Discord watch party, and I said the same thing, that I think Saubert's not coming off IR. I think Callerup's got that job because they do the same thing and they're doing it just as well and as effectively. And I think Callerup actually might give you a better receiving option in some aspects as well in that. But yeah, to your point, let's kind of dive into this on the offensive side and these struggles and these protection issues, because I'm in total agreement with you. I have not been impressed with Clint Kubiak's game planning since basically the Rams game forward. Even in the Tennessee game, I wasn't impressed, and I really haven't been lately. And so this talk that I've heard, I did a show with Dan Viens this past week on, Clint Kubiak and his potential head coaching candidacies. I think those are all but shot right now. Unless this team goes to a Super Bowl and this offense catches up to where this defense is at, it's almost having a similar effect as Ryan Grubb. And I'm not saying he's Ryan Grubb here, but my point is our offense was built on explosive plays that first half of Ryan Grubb's season in the passing game. And all of a sudden, those started to die out, and we had no answer. And I feel the very same thing with Clint Kubiak here, except he's got a bit of a run game that he can lean on when he chooses to, and he needs to lean on it more frequently, in my opinion. But to your point, like JSN today, 2 catches, 23 yards. His long was 17. He had 4 targets. That's the lowest target share and catches for JSN on the season. And all of a sudden, our offense fell apart. Cooper Kupp had 4 targets and 3 catches for 24 yards. AJ Barner, to your point, was our best receiver. And Kenneth Walker had the same amount of targets as JSN. And I love seeing Kenneth Walker involved. I think Kenneth Walker is showing more and more each week. He is learning how to play in this offense and the scheme, and it's starting to actually pay dividends for him. Like, he's not jumping. He's not, there were a couple plays today where he literally holds his track and gets 2 yards instead of what he would have done before, which is stop, try and cut back a bunch and lose 3. He's taking what they're giving him. But Clint Kubiak has got to figure this out, because the passing game, the one thing Flores did today, which I give him, again, major props because he's good at what he does, they brought pressure and they were playing cloud with their corners, and their corners were sitting off at 7 and they weren't taking anything deep. They were passing it off and they were sitting waiting for all the quick stuff. And it was throwing Sam into basically a tornado, because Sam would drop back thinking he had the quick thing because the corners are off. And then the corners would take 2 steps and then they'd squat and sit on the route. And Sam would have to double clutch, pull back. And that led to a couple of sacks. When we talk about these protection issues, though, like having AJ Barner block Van Ginkel in wide open space makes absolutely no sense to me. Like, why would you expect that to be a good matchup? It's the same with having your running backs involved in that. Like, that makes no sense. And then I think we got to talk about it at this point, and it's become, I think, growingly worse and worse, is Anthony Bradford. And I know there's people out there saying, oh, if you put all his reps together, Anthony Bradford in freaking pass protection is a massive liability. And I will say this, if Sam Darnold shows up on the injury report this week, it is a direct correlation to Anthony Bradford not being able to do his job and at least find someone to block. Because there were a couple of those where Sam got killed because of Anthony Bradford.
Was it the first sack where, I don't know if Oluwatimi was supposed to slide to the right to pick up?
Someone was. No one slid.
Well, what happened is Bradford just ended up looking like he's blocking nothing. I think the play that pissed me off the most with Bradford was not any of the sacks allowed, because some of these pressures are on the left side too. Like, I think Dallas Turner got a sack on Bradford, on Darnold. Cross was quote unquote beaten, but that was also Darnold holding on to the ball for quite a while. So the all-22 will be interesting on that one. Cooper Kupp incidentally saving the day, I believe, on that play, because they ended up kicking a field goal on that drive because he recovered the fumble. But you have Bradford as a pulling guard, and he doesn't get any shoulder. He doesn't make any meaningful contact in the red zone. I think this was the same possession that they got the field goal on. And Greg Olsen pointed it out. And Charbonnet ends up losing a bunch of yards. They're in a 3rd down and long, and they can't do anything about it, and they kick a field goal. So for me, if Bradford can't even consistently provide value in the run game either, I don't. At the very least, he's not here next year. I'm so sure of that. For as far as the rest of this season, I don't think they're going to bench him. We'll see about his elbow injury because Christian Haynes did play the fourth quarter, and Macdonald seemed to indicate that the elbow injury wasn't so serious that it mattered a whole lot whether he returned. I guess it was just not enough for him to finish the game. But yeah, it's every week there's some terrible Bradford rep that looks so uniquely different from the others who screw up. And the right side of the line, I think, is a bit of a problem because there were times where, and somebody's mentioning in the comments, Jason James, it looked like the Vikings just had Seattle snap cane. It's how quickly they were getting off the snap, off the ball, and like they knew everything that was coming. Sometimes they got a little too overzealous and committed offside penalties, but it seemed like a risk they were willing to take. I mean, one of those sacks, Lucas was not even out of his stance. The ball was snapped, and the Vikings are already in the backfield. So, it was a bad job by the offensive line. It's the worst performance of the season as far as pass pro. And then the run blocking, which did get better in the second half. I would really like them to, as you said, off air, these toss plays of Charbonnet, they got to stop.
Yes.
Like a regular thing. I think he might have scored on one. Or was it? But
it was like I don't know if you want to call it an outside zone play because it was mainly because Callerup decided to take the whole defense and just run them into the end zone with them.
Yeah, and also the Vikings defense at that point, every time they got to stop, held them to a field goal, Rosberg would throw the ball right back to Seattle. At some point, you just go, I don't know how much longer I can be out here. So, I mean, the last few yards looked like some business decisions by an otherwise creditable Vikings defense. But, the blocking was just subpar. And as much as I like Robbie Oots, I need to see him make more impactful blocks. Like that Steelers game is kind of like our best example of that, but it's not happening consistently enough for me to justify keeping him in the game. They got to be a little more varied in what they run when Oots is in. Too often, as soon as you see Oots shift, you know that they're going to run at his side. So there just needs to be more variation off that. They need to use him more even in the passing game. Like the screen pass to Walker last week, I thought that was a great play call. So, okay, Oots isn't getting a target, but he is a lead blocker in effect, and he's an eligible receiver, so you don't have to worry about a penalty. And I think what worried me the most about this game moving forward is the play action sub did not work. Like the Vikings were sitting on all the short stuff too. There was one play where I will ding Darnold for. It was a boot, and he threw it up into triple coverage to Arroyo when A.J. Barner's wide open underneath for what looked to be a minimal gain, but at least it's better than putting the ball in harm's way the way he did. But yes, this is an all too familiar story with the Seahawks, whether it's Sam or Gino or Russ. When the explosive plays aren't there and they're forced to take their medicine, they can get a little bit off balance. So, I mean, the good news again for them is they're not going to play another defense that looks like Flores's. Now, the bad news is they are going to play good defenses again. So they got a lot to fix before that Rams game. And they got a lot to fix even before the Falcons game because the Falcons might not have a great run defense, but they have a good enough pass defense, and they've got two edge rushers that they've drafted. They've got one of the top sack totals in the league. So it's going to be tougher for the Seahawks offensive line, I think, to cope with that. But yes, the offensive struggles are kind of surfacing a bit in terms of the limitations of this offense when Smith and Jigba is not getting the huge plays, or when they're not getting explosives to other players, or when the running game is having ups and downs. So certainly a lot to clean up in the film. I'm sure Macdonald is aware of that. I'm sure John Benton and Clint Kubiak are also aware of that this is not clean football, and it hasn't been cleaned even dating back to the fourth quarter last week.
Yeah, no, agreed. And I think, there was a scene on the sideline where it was Clint talking to Drew Lock and Sam. And I think he said to Sam, he's like, hey, are you okay? And then they started talking about stuff. And I think it's the fact that they know this wasn't a good game because really, up until that Charbonnet run, your only touchdown had come by the defense. Everything else was long-range field goals. And the red zone's become a troublesome area for this team, which is, something I'm kind of getting more and more concerned with because that's the least – I'm okay with red zone issues early on in the season, not when you're trying to push for the playoffs in January football. It's going to be interesting, but the thing is how bad is Bradford's elbow injury, and does this lead Christian Haynes to actually have an opportunity? Because I'll be honest, watching him come in, yes, he had an initial bad pass rep on a screenplay where he let the guy go right by him, like didn't even touch him. But outside of that, Christian Haynes didn't look horrible. He actually, the one thing will give him credit for is he runs hard across the field when the play is away from him on run plays. Like there were times he was right next to Gray Zabel, looking for work, trying to get involved, where you never see that with Anthony Bradford. Once the running back's by him, he doesn't seem to continue on much.
Well, it's apparently not the most difficult thing to get by Bradford. He says, like, I'm trying to be nice. I mean, he had like a really nice block on Cody Barton last week that helped spring a big Kenneth Walker run. But most of the time, offensive linemen are fine with their typical reps. But when you see Bradford's bad reps, they're worse than all the other players put together.
Yes,
because it's a continuation of 3 years of this, and he is the weak link on this O-line, no doubt. And what is most disappointing to me is that it has mattered not one bit that he has a good right tackle next to him for a full season in Abe Lucas. And it's whether it's Grubb's scheme and Scott Huff's, therefore, and Kubiak and Benson's scheme, it doesn't matter. It seems like he just can't really fit consistently anywhere. So it's too late to really think about benching him unless he is like injured enough for Haynes to give him a real think about it. But he's just so subpar on a weekly basis, and in ways, as you said, that can get a quarterback hurt, get a running back hurt. I mean, when there's just instant penetration in the backfield. How often? I know it's kind of a meme thing, and freeze frames can often be misleading, but many cases when Bradford has got his back to the play and he's facing his quarterback, many times it's for like bad reasons for real, not an out of context thing. So. I don't want to be a downer on this overall performance, though. I mean, 219 yards of offense isn't good, especially since I think the Vikings defense is vulnerable to getting beat off their own aggressiveness. But it's just that because of these last 3 weeks, we've seen the struggles in the Rams game, the struggles at times at the back end of the Titans game, and now the struggles throughout this Vikings game. You're wondering if something has been figured out a bit regarding this Seahawks offense, and even the Cardinals game. The turnovers there too. They're up 35-0, but they got 2 defensive touchdowns, and like Darnold was 10 of 12 passing, but they had some sloppy moments. So I guess the one good thing for the Seahawks is they kept the penalties to a minimum. So like it wasn't sloppy in terms of penalties and turnovers in high volume, but it was sloppy in terms of the execution of plays that ended up being tackles for loss or no gain or incomplete. Like Darnold's been an exceptionally accurate quarterback this year. He ends up 14 of 26 today. And how many passes did he get batted down at the line? I will say, like, the Vikings are notorious for that, especially Van Ginkel. But Darnold has had an issue this year, it feels like, with passes hitting his own guys at the line or getting tipped at the line. And that was exacerbated today.
The one thing I'll say, and we'll move on to the defense here shortly, because that's kind of the main thing I wanted to discuss outside of this, but I find it very interesting that this team runs a lot of quick concepts. And when I played in college and when I've coached, one thing I like to do with my offensive line and pass pro is sometimes we pass set, sometimes we cut. And the cutting, the reason why you do it isn't necessarily to and some people say, oh, cutting's out there to injure people. It's not. If you cut correctly as an O-line, the one thing it does is it makes a defensive line think about it when they come in and they don't put their hands up every single time when they know it's a quick pass, because they have to protect and get their hands down to shove down the lineman that's trying to cut them. Mm-hmm. We don't cut it all. And so everything is straight drop for the offensive line sets, and a defensive lineman knows, okay, cool, I'll just get my hands up if it's a quick play and I won't get there. And to your point, they've had so many batted balls this year on quick passes that it's like, okay, like maybe you need to institute some cuts occasionally just to get that defensive line to play it a little bit more honest and keep their hands down occasionally so your quarterback can get off. Because whenever I see Sam get his passes knocked down, a majority of the time there is an open receiver he is throwing to. It's just the ball gets batted down in front of it. But the one thing I'll say, Mookie, not to defend Clint Kubiak, we didn't see really a weird, well, we did, but we didn't see a weird trick play. No weird pitch, toss, third quarterback coming in, like outside of the one weird shift out of the barnyard, which we never should have done. They didn't do anything really weird, which has been okay. But let's move over to this side of the ball, Mookie, and let's talk about this defensive domination and Mike Macdonald's unit taking over. In my opinion, right now, it is the best defense in the NFL. Like, I know people say the Rams, but I think this defense is a better overall unit, top to bottom and through and through. And when I look at what, they did to Brosmer today, 19 to 30, 4 INTs, one of them probably one of the worst interceptions we've seen this year in the NFL, which Ernest Jones took back. But outside of that, defensively, Drake Thomas is just, I think we can settle down the linebacker conversation in Seattle because Drake Thomas fits what Mike Macdonald wants to do. I was shocked Ty Okada played.
Yes.
Considering his injury, right? We all were sitting there going, okay, is it DeAnthony Bell? And Ty played well. He got a fumble recovery. He didn't blow any coverages. Kobe Bryant had a good game. Reek Wallen had a really good game up until he decided he wanted to go truck Brock Brosmer, and that didn't work out so well with the fumble that incurred. But overall, this unit, in my opinion, is set up to win football games in January. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I think that the Texans, it's hard to deny them right now as it's the best defense of the league. I think they're number one in points allowed after the Rams ended up losing today, which thank you, Carolina, by the way, because the Texans have had to put up with a pretty ineffective offense for most of the year, and they're still just wrecking shop. I'll still need to see the Seahawks, the Rams rematch will be key, how they handle the Colts, although if the Colts keep slumping, they're in legit danger of missing the playoffs. And I don't even know if Daniel Jones will be healthy enough for that game because he's playing with a fractured fibula, apparently, maybe a stress fracture. But the offense has clearly taken a turn for the worse as a result. But this is an elite defense, no doubt about it. And very, very good and great defenses make bad offenses look terrible. And that's what we saw out of the Seahawks today, where they couldn't get a run game going. There were some missed opportunities for Brosmer. There were a couple of plays where Jordan Addison dropped the ball. I have no idea what's up with him and the fact that the Vikings have dropped as many passes that they have this year. You want to talk about JSN being a non-factor. Justin Jefferson was on one catch for -4 yards right up until they gave him a screen pass in garbage time on 3rd and 21. But this pass rush with 4, I thought they had a slow start to the game in terms of a consistent pass rush. I mean, they got a sack on the opening drive with Big Cat. But as the game progressed, Brosmer was just totally overwhelmed. He's misfiring when pressured. They were running Drake Thomas A-gap blitzes on back-to-back plays, one of which ended in a sack for him. Byron Murphy gets a sack while getting held at the same time. So there's just so much swarming that they do up front. And then Ernest Jones has got Defensive Player of the Week locked up, I'm pretty sure. I mean, you get a pick six, you get another interception. If the ball bounced another way, he might have gotten that fumble recovery that Ty Okada ended up getting. Hopefully Ernest is all right, because I was very annoyed that in the middle of an obvious blowout that they put him back out there after he was down on a knee. So they finally pulled the plug when the game was up. But I'm just hoping that's, he didn't get in there one play too long. I was lamenting on Twitter, or X if you want to call it that, but the Seahawks have been good with turnovers, but they haven't forced more than 2 in a game all season. And then they forced 5 for the first time in 6 years. And they could have forced 6, 7, 8 turnovers. It was that emphatic a domination. And DeMarcus Lawrence, my goodness, he is sensational. It was his pressure that led to the Jones pick 6. It was also him being 10 yards behind Aaron Jones on a 3rd down check down, running toward Jones, forcing the fumble from behind, and Okada recovering it. And that was kind of like the realistic end of the contest as a result, because the Vikings could have kicked a field goal there. Good to see Reek get an interception. Absolutely the worst ball security I think I've ever seen out of a cornerback. He didn't even come remotely close to trying to tuck that ball in as a former wide receiver. So I just laughed when he fumbled. That's now twice the Seahawks have now committed a turnover off of their own pick. So as if they couldn't turn the ball over enough on offense, the defense also has to give it away twice too. But Reek has been really, really good since coming back from his concussion. So I'm not really going to be losing sleep over the fumble. Just the way he undercut that route was a thing of beauty. So they're just suffocating, and they're so assignment correct for the most part. I will say Nicky Manwari is having a little bit of trouble dealing with tight ends in coverage. I mean, that seam route to Hawkinson, he looked kind of slow, and it's not like Hawkinson's some sort of speedster. So, but he's a rookie. Those things will happen. He's not going to be perfect. He was unlucky to not get an interception because Justin Jefferson had to play DB on that play. But this defense is just sensational. So if you want to disregard, okay, it's Max Brosmer And the Vikings offense is a shambles. They're down starting offensive lineman, and Brosmer clearly was not ready for the moment. Look what they did to the Rams 2 weeks ago. I know they lost that game, but the way the Rams offense has looked the last 2 weeks, I know they lost today, but it was basically they are either getting touchdowns or they were turning it over. Like, I think they only punted one time. And you look at the way that the Seahawks performed against the Rams, or they held the Rams to kind of the worst totals of the season in many categories. This Seahawks defense at least looks like one that is capable of shutting down better offenses on a consistent basis, as opposed to what we've seen over the years where, okay, maybe the defense, when it's at least average, will shut down some bad offenses, but then get absolutely bulldozed by any baseline above average offense. I don't think we're seeing that this year. So, yes, kudos to Mike Macdonald's unit for just crushing the Vikings and kind of ending the game on their own in the first half. And it is their first shutout win in 10 years. And it was also an NFC North team. It was the Bears with Jimmy Clausen starting, so another backup. But what was funny about that shutout is it was exclusively punt drives for the Bears. And the offense wasn't good in that game either. Like, they only put up, I think, 19 points. They similarly had a touchdown and 4 field goals, and then Lockett had a kick return touchdown. But if the offense can struggle like that and you still win 26-0, you could do a lot worse.
Agreed. And let's talk about this, what's moving forward here, Mookie, and we'll get to the 12's comments here. But obviously, Rams lose to the Panthers today. Seattle is able to get the victory. So now, again, this division really is truly up for grabs. Seattle controls their own destiny, because as of last week, even if Seattle had beat the Rams on Thursday, the Rams, if they and Seattle had won out, it still would have been a situation where the Rams would have owned the tiebreaker. But now that the Rams have lost to another NFC team, if Seattle wins, and say the Rams do lose again to Seattle, and the Seahawks lose to, say, the Colts, and Seattle wins over the next NFC teams, being the Falcons, the Rams, the Panthers, and the 49ers, Seattle might still have the opportunity to win the NFC West on common opponents alone and victories. That loss by the Rams today was huge for Seattle, and especially with Seattle getting the victory today.
Oh, definitely. So Seattle's losses are to the Rams, Tampa Bay, and San Francisco. And the Rams have a 1-on-1 record against the Niners. They beat Tampa Bay emphatically, and they lost to the Eagles, and Seattle doesn't play Philadelphia. So the conference record tiebreaker might matter, because Seattle has only lost to NFC teams, and the Rams have similarly also only lost to NFC teams. So if there comes a time where the Rams have a conference record tiebreaker against Seattle, Seattle might have that edge. The common opponents thing definitely is now coming into play. Obviously, this means Seattle shouldn't take that Carolina game in Week 17 lightly, not likely. But I don't think anybody expected Carolina to do that. They are an extremely weird team. They are 7-6, but they've beaten Green Bay, they have beaten the Rams, and they beat Green Bay in Lambeau. And they can lose 17-7 to the Saints. They can look as bad as they did against San Francisco on Monday night, where they picked Purdy off 3 times and Bryce Young does nothing. And then Bryce has a very good game today. And then, of course, they lose by like 40 points or 30 points to the Buffalo Bills. So they are you never know what you're going to get in any given week. So don't bet on the Carolina Panthers. In terms of consistent performance, they are as high variance a team as you will see. But as far as the NFC West, Chase, it's back on, baby. Part of the belief was that for Seattle, yes, they have to beat the Rams. If they don't, forget this division title. But if they do beat the Rams, it was also contingent. The winning the division was also contingent upon the Rams dropping another game. And we thought maybe Detroit would be that game, even though the Lions are slumping right now. And it turns out you get big old help from former Seahawks like Dave Canales and Damian Lewis. Jake Curran was starting at right guard today, folks. So that's how dire the Carolina offensive situation has been on their line. And they get the upset win. And now we can start thinking again, even though you might be complaining about the offense, the number 1 seed is in reach. They are tied for the best record in the conference with Chicago and the Rams. The Bears have the tiebreaker right now, and they are the number 1 seed against all the odds at the moment. But if Seattle wins out and the Bears lose even once, Seattle's the number 1 seed in this conference. And given that their last 2 games are on the road in the regular season, I do not like the idea of them trying to get to a Super Bowl by winning 3 straight road games. in the playoffs, which means playing 5 straight road games. So, like, to me, winning the division first and foremost is important. You get that 1 seed, though, anything is possible.
Agreed. And that's why I like the fact that now Seattle, really, they've got the Falcons, who are coming off the loss to the Jets today, even though they got Bijan Robinson really going. I think he had, 27 touches for 142 yards or something it was. So Seattle's going to have to play, and they're probably playing Kirk Cousins as normal. And, they'll have to bring pressure and move Kirk, but it's a road trip. And they come home to that Colts game, which will be another tough one. And then they got the Rams. So Seattle needs, in my opinion, to really have a chance. They need to figure out this offense. And, Sam Darnold made a, statement at his podium today that, this was not a good performance by the offense. And he goes, we've got to look ourselves in the mirror. And, that's the one thing I will give Sam credit for. He, in my opinion, is a much better leader than than Geno was here in Seattle. And that's something I look at and I go, okay, I think, yes, they will get it figured out. Kubiak's the one that's got to really get this figured out and put them in better positions to be successful. And I think he's got to take a look at himself in the mirror and go, I need to start learning how to evolve. But we'll see. It makes this stretch on the back end here really interesting. And should be an interesting game this coming Sunday versus the Falcons, because the Falcons, like you said, they have a very potent pass rush. They've got a good running back, and they've got some good weapons in Drake London and Michael Pitts. Or not Michael Pitts. It's not Michael Pitts. Oh, gosh, who am I thinking? Kyle Pitts. Thank you.
You're combining him and
Yeah, exactly. But that's because Kyle Pitts is very irrelevant most of the time. So, but let's kind of take a look in the 12s here. Mookie, we got our 12s Q&A blitz, and let's see what the 12s felt about today's game. And let's start here at the top. We've got Ian Victor, one of our moderators in the chat, goes, what's up, guys? Defense dominates. Offense, what's going on low-key? Guys missing blocks left and right. Most lopsided NFL season in a long time. And I need to start the Max Crosby Seattle countdown.
Yeah, might as well. They got 4 sacks, but it's another game where Mafe looked pretty ineffective as a rusher. I think Hall got close to a sack, but your sacks came from Murphy, interior,
Chenna.
Williams, interior. Chenna got one, and he had one taken away because of the Job holding penalty. And then you had Thomas split a sack with somebody else. I think, Tank also had one. So they need more from their pure outside linebackers other than Chenna, because he is the veteran of the group compared to Mafe and Hall. But we're to me, an elite edge rusher, even an edge rusher who can get like a Chris Clemens type, really puts this defensive front at least over the top as good luck blocking all of these people all at once.
Agreed. CK Seahawk comes in with Kubiak's play calling the first half had me worried. Second half, much better in my opinion. Well, I'll say this. I don't know if his play calling was better in the second half, but it was more of just bleed the clock, run the ball. There wasn't really anything I looked at and I went, yeah, you're getting back into rhythm. It was survival mode to get out without any injuries, I felt, in the second half. What about you, Mookie?
What was funny? When they threw that quick out to JSN and he gained 17 yards, they could have done that at any point in the first half. So it didn't have to be an explosive play. JSN is a yak option on this team, and they need to start doing the same with Rashid Shaheed too. There was another. I'm kind of confused as to why that catch was taken away. I don't think that ball ever lost.
No.
He ever lost control. Didn't matter because it was a 5-yard difference on a play that they were going to kick a field goal anyway. Incidentally, Rashid Shaheed, he needs to D. Williamsify himself with his punt return decisions, because fair catching before, that basically killed the first drive right there, because they had to go so far even to flip the field. He's got to be better with those punt return decisions. But yes, I thought Kubiak's play calling in the second half was all right. I like that little leak out to Barner, where Barner goes across the formation, and I knew it was wide open right away in that 4th and 1. Those are just the offense.
So that to me, this is what bugs me and has been driving me nuts all freaking year, Mookie, with that is such a staple of the McVay-Shanahan bootleg game, where your backside tight end does exactly what Barner does, and you fake and you boot to it and you dump it to him. And we've seen that twice this year with Arroyo. That's the first time we've seen Barner do it. It's a 5-yard easy pass play that just drives teams nuts, because the minute you want to shoot down your corner or your nickel to take that away, you have the in sit or you have the hook curl right in behind it. that you can drill it to. And this is what's been driving me nuts with Kubiak, is that has not been something in our offense that's been just a staple to spam like McVay and Shanahan still do.
Yeah, he's got to be more effective at finding ways to move the passing offense when JSN is not as effective as he was today. I don't think we're going to see another 2 for 23 showing the rest of the season. But like those simple plays, I think are just easy offense for 5-10 yards is just as good to me as hitting an explosive for 50.
All right. Next one we got in here is Islam comes in with two things. Texans and Seahawks are the two best defenses in the league. And not to pile on to Anthony Bradford, but man, he was absolutely dreadful today. The whiff on that block was just, man. Yeah, no, and there was,
I have to say which one.
Yeah, exactly. That's which whiff there, Islam. That's the real question. There was one Mookie for me where, again, it wasn't a sack. It was one of that sequence where we had the two quick plays there just before the end of the half. We were moving the ball and we settled for the field goal. And it was the first one where Bradford slides down onto a player that Olu had and lets this blitzing linebacker come roaring right up into Charbonnet's grill and basically have a free shot on the timing play. It's like you can see him coming before the snap. Just take the block. Like, take that and don't have it where the guy gets a free run up and sees where Sam's going to throw it and just jumps in front of it and knocks it down. Like, it's like, my gosh, man, just simple stuff today. Like, Bradford gave away the A gap so many times, where the rule one is do not give away inside pressure right away. And he gave it away multiple times. And it actually leads really well into this comment from Sean here, the Scotchman. He goes, as soon as Sundell went down, O-line problems started to show up. How do you feel about that? I don't know if that's totally true.
Maybe in pass pro, yes, a little bit, because the run game has gotten better. Like,
much better.
After Sundell left in the middle of the Cardinals game, they rushed for 200 against Arizona. They had some good runs against the Rams. They just didn't commit to it enough. And then against the Titans last week, they had a very effective run day. It's just that they only ran 40-something plays total. And then in this game, they get 125 yards, and it's not tremendous efficiency, but you could see some of the holes that they were getting for Walker and Charbonnet, or at least even getting like the barnyard push, all that. So, by the way, why in the world did they shift out of that barnyard push? I mean, it's unstoppable. That's twice now that they have totally changed something there and not gotten a yard out of it. But I digress. So, yeah, I don't think that Sundell being out of the lineup has been a net negative for the Seahawks. I'm not saying it's a net positive, because the pass blocking has definitely had some issues. But one key thing about Bradford, just to go back to him, remember, he did not play in the Vikings game last year. So Tala Lamea did. So this was Bradford's first time against a Brian Flores defense, and the results could not have looked any worse.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, like, I look at it and I go, they got to figure this out. They can't go into January football in this stretch run and play the Rams and not have this figured out. And when I look at, to the point of, a couple of those strip sacks that we're talking about with Sam earlier and protecting the ball, one of them, Dallas Turner came in to the side of it, like the one where he was coming in from behind and Sam was starting to like get ready to rip it, lost it, okay, be better, like understand your protection. But I can't really fault him when the guy's got a clean shot at the ball and there's no one that touches him. Like, we made Dallas Turner look like his draft stock, where all year he has looked like a complete bust. Today, we made Dallas Turner look like he was worthy of the number one, not the number one, but a first overall pick, first round pick, I should say, for the Minnesota Vikings, because all year he's looked like a bust.
Yep.
All right, Hawks 6973 goes, not just whiffs from the right guard, but all sorts of mistakes on the protection calls across the line. Is that Olu? Seems again like there's problems since Sundell went down. I'm going to be honest, I think Olu's actually doing a really good job at center, and I think there's a chance we don't see Sundell back at center this season. I think there's a higher chance if Sundell is healthy, he might get stuck at right guard to replace Bradford if they are to make a switch.
Yeah, I will defer to more of the film heads for that one as far as protection calls. It's just that Minnesota is a tricky matchup historically for most teams with all the stuff they love to do. And part of their middling ranking has been injuries. Van Ginkel missed a lot of time. Blake Cashman missed a lot of time. The secondary is kind of their weak spot. I mean, Isaiah Rodgers looked like he was never into tackle football until today, because like Cooper Kupp sunned him, Walker lowered his shoulder and ran him over. He missed a couple other tackles. So their secondary is not their strong suit. But with Bernard up front, and you also have Dallas Turner putting in 2 sacks, Hargrave has kind of been a bust for them. But like that front 7 that they've got, and especially a guy like Van Ginkel, they can cause problems for still ultimately inexperienced offensive line like Seattle's.
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Jason James back in goes, I counted 3 times on TV where Bradford was looking back at Darnold and lost as the plays going by him. What the F is that? Yeah, well, there's one image I know, Mookie, that's going to be out there. And that's the one of when Sam got, in my opinion, should have been a penalty when, I don't know who it was, dropped him after the whistle, like supplanted him into the ground. Obviously, we do it to, Justin Jefferson later on with Nicky Manwari, and there's a flag. But when it's our quarterback, let's not call that penalty. But Sam's on the ground, turning around, and I think he's looking at the ref going like, what in the world? But Bradford's right there staring at Sam. And it looks like Sam's looking at Bradford going like, what the WTF was that?
Yeah. I mean, if Darnold was wearing a number 15 jersey
and it was red.
Yeah, if it was red and it had Mahomes on the back, I think they would have thrown a flag. They would have ejected. I think it was Eric Wilson who got the sack there. They would have ejected him. They would have pressed criminal charges after the game. They would have banned him from the league. But alas, that was not the case for Darnold. He just had to take that. Like, I had no issue with Imamori getting flagged for that on Jefferson.
Oh no,
that's
it should have been done earlier too.
It's just that you got to flag Minnesota for the same thing.
Let's have a look here. Jason comes back with, I like the way you all talk about the good with the bad. We always will. This is never going to be a rosy show. I'm never going to have rose-colored glasses on going, hey, the Seahawks are amazing and there's no faults. We won 26-0. Best team in the league. Like, yeah, we won 26-0. We played, in my opinion, piss poor outside of our defense today. Special teams was good again, which was great to see, but offensively, we were nowhere near where we need to be if we want to be the team we say we want to be. So I will always be that way. Jason goes, the toss to Charbonnet most of the time is really bad. I agree. Oots is a whiff blocker. I will hold more or less. I will hold my judgment on Robbie Oots, and I agree with, Mookie, your point that he needs to produce more. Again, we got to look at a guy that's learning a new position, and he missed 4 weeks of it. I am going to be interested to see what Robbie Oots looks like next year with a full offseason of understanding the fullback role, really diving into it. And, I'm sure he's going to take it a little bit more seriously as that is now his position at the NFL level. I think he might be one of those guys you see take more of a jump next year. Because, realistically, to your point, I feel like he is still learning how the running game works and where his target marks are in the blocking scheme and where guys move to compared to when he was a tight end and the guys were right there in front of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to take time for him. I can see the value of a fullback in this offense. Yeah, I certainly would rather him be in there than Brady Russell because he's just not really a fullback. But there's still work to be done there. I'm still on the optimistic side about this run game, though. I think there are pieces there that they are getting better as the weeks progress. It's just that they're not running a lot of plays lately for it to kind of play itself out in high volume. So, the Falcons have been vulnerable. I mean, they gave up 200 plus to Jonathan Taylor a couple weeks back. They've had some games where they've gotten run over. So I think that's an opportunity, and it's an indoor game, so no environment issue whatsoever. It's at a fast surface, so I think they might try and lean on the run game more to kind of protect Sam and protect the offensive line, knowing that they got to deal with Pierce and Walker and a couple other guys who have been, and Leonard Floyd, our old buddy Leonard Floyd, of many NFC West showdowns, and just kind of pin, don't let Atlanta get too far up the field with their pass rushing unit. And kind of stem the tide a bit by running the ball effectively.
Yeah, I'm very much the more, and I'll say this on the run game. I think Kenneth Walker I'm changing my prediction that I had earlier this year. I think Kenneth Walker is a Seattle Seahawk next year. I think it'll be something like a 2-year deal that they'll work out because I think he's starting to figure it out here. Now, I'm going to ask something, Mookie, that was kind of interesting. I don't know if you heard John Schneider's pregame interview that he usually does with Steve Rabel and that group, his kind of pregame show that he has there. But they asked him about Cam Akers. And John made an interesting comment that they tried to trade for Cam Akers a couple seasons ago. And I think it's interesting to note that they have him. I think Cam Akers may play a factor down the stretch here, even though he's running back 3. I think Cam Akers may play a bigger factor in the offseason in the sense of, and I know Dan Vians brought this up when he was on my show and we were talking, that he thinks Zach Charbonnet could be a trade piece this offseason because he has a year left on his deal and Seattle may be able to get a pick for him if they want to recoup a pick into this draft. They may sign Kenneth Walker. There could be a chance it's Kenneth Walker and Cam Akers and Charbonnet gets traded in the offseason.
Yeah, you know what? If it's a couple of years ago, that must have been when Akers tore his Achilles again. So maybe they were thinking about that. At that time, Walker, I don't think, was missing any games. So that it probably wasn't going to be 2022 either in his second year in the league. So it must have been the 2023 season because like he started with the Rams, he got traded to the Vikings, and then he got hurt, I think, right around the trade deadline. So I am wondering if there was something there as far as like maybe they weren't satisfied with Charbonnet's progress initially as a rookie and they wanted to play Akers more as a running back too. Fun fact, Cam Akers has more passing touchdowns this year for the Vikings than Max Brosmer did against Seattle. He's 1 for 1 for a touchdown. So Clint Kubiak, please nobody tell him that stat line because he might have the worst idea in history as far as what to do with Akers as soon as he's active for a game. I think that the reason why he was inactive today and Gaskin was getting the carries is Gaskin's been with the team since October. He knows enough of the playbook, I would assume, and Akers only just got here. So I think that Akers will play, down the line. I don't know whether Holani comes back this regular season. So, it's just kind of figuring out who will get snaps. Will it be Gaskin? Will it be Akers? It's not like either one of them is going to be a high volume carry guy. It is relieving so far that Walker has not been missing any game time. And I think that increases his chances of coming back here next season, even if it's not on a mega deal. He's starting to look closer to rookie Ken Walker minus those big home runs, 70-yard, 50-yard touchdown runs, which I'm excited to see. But with Charbonnet, he is a imminently replaceable running back. Like he is a decent player. He's not an RB1, and he's a very good pass protector, no doubt. But he just lacks that extra quality that would make him an upper echelon running back. Namely, that he has a tendency to stop his feet at the line. He's very choppy with his motions, and he just doesn't have significant speed in the open field. And also, for as much as we talk about him as the idea of a power back, I feel like Walker is showing quite a bit of power to his game lately. And Charbonnet gets stuffed just as often as Walker does.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement there. We actually had Coach Derek in here from All 22 Films. Says rough game offensively, but Flores knows how to exploit weaknesses. Yeah, absolutely. He is one of the best at doing that. So again, we won't see a Brian Flores type defense again this year, but we will see Chris Shula. We will see Robert Saleh. We're going to still have some tough defenses, and we make this playoff run. It's going to be, again, another slew of them. So who knows? But let's look at a couple more. Oh, here's an interesting one from Jason James. He goes, what's up with the chicken shit coaching decisions? It'll end up destroying us in the playoffs. I just know it. We should be practicing 4th and short and blowouts. Don't you agree? Yeah, I found it interesting how we were going to go for that field goal and the crowd went absolutely bonkers on Mike Macdonald and he took the timeout and we ended up going for it and throwing that pass to Barner in the flat for the first down. Like, to me, the reason I thought you go for it in that situation in some respects, Mookie, is you needed something to end a good note of a touchdown drive for Seattle in this game.
Yeah, I mean, if they won 22-0 versus 26-0, who cares? But it was good to see the offense get a touchdown because I'm trying to think of what would be the most lopsided scoreline in NFL history for a team to not score an offensive touchdown, because Seattle probably would have been high up there. So my thing with the 4th down decisions with Macdonald is this was something we got on Pete for relentlessly. And you know who's near the top, if not at the top of the charts as far as 4th down decision aggressiveness? Pete Carroll. And you saw Dave Canales today get 2 touchdowns against the Rams by going for it on 4th down and not inches, like 4th and 1 and a 4th and 3. The winning touchdown to Ted McMillan was a 4th and 3 play down by 4. They get the winning score. Schottenheimer's shown some 4th down aggressiveness. So like Pete and his disciples, including Dan Quinn, who famously basically beat Dan Campbell at his own game last year in the playoffs, they've been willing to be aggressive on 4th down. Macdonald, I think, has been one of the most conservative coaches all season as far as fourth down decision making. And it is, and DJT mentioned it. What's up, man? Field goals veteran in the comment section on YouTube. We are the least likely to go for it on fourth in the entire league. And it goes back to what happened in week 1 with that 49ers game and kicking a field goal in a tie game instead of trying to get the first down, bleed more clock. Maybe you kick a field goal anyway or push for a touchdown. I mean, just look at what happened in that Alabama-Auburn game last night. It was a pretty ballsy call by Kalen DeBoer to go for it on 4th and 2 in a tie game against a really limited Auburn offense. He went for it. They got a touchdown. Auburn's got to go for 7 instead of 3, and they end up fumbling in what would have been field goal range. So I think that Macdonald is not somebody who is conservative by nature, but I think certain things can scare him off. So, like, he was very aggressive in that Bucs game. It was a shootout. Defense wasn't stopping anybody. 4th and 3, touchdown to Torrey Horton. Should have been the winner. Defense melted down, and Sam throws a pick. But in this instance, I did not like them kicking a field goal after that failed shift on the barnyard stuff. Like, to me, that's too conservative, even against a team as limited as the Vikings. And what I hope doesn't happen is that against tougher opposition, some of those key decisions that you have to make in close games don't end up being, I'm going to trust my defense over my offense, and then it ends up backfiring, such is kind of the main criticism of a lot of defensive-minded coaches.
Yeah, and just to point it out, all 22 films, Coach Derek says, having a great defense influences you to get points. Generally a smart move by this team in 2025. It's situational, not global.
Yeah, I think that in this instance, they could have gotten away. Myers has been really, really strong with his field goal kicking throughout much of this season. So, just getting points on the board, knowing that don't give Brosmer really any sign of life with 0-point possessions in case of 4th down failures. It's just that I think everybody would have been a lot more at ease if they had gotten touchdowns by the end of the 3rd quarter on offense, and then the 4th quarter really would have been extended backup time. But yeah, I'd like to see Macdonald be a little bit more aggressive on 4th down, but it also starts with them not running so much on 2nd and 10. Like, don't put yourself in 3rd and long voluntarily the way they do, because they don't get into a lot of 3rd downs, but when they do get into 3rd and long, they're the worst in the league at converting 3rd and long. Funnily enough, one of the plays that they did convert was that Cody White catch and run for 21 yards. Yeah. And I think Cody White is, at this point, until Derek Young comes back, if at all, he's the wide receiver 4 on this team for his blocking, for his return game value if he does return kicks, because he doesn't all the time, but he has before, and that he can be targeted on occasion. It's like him and Derek, there's not a whole lot of difference between what they do. Jake Bobo being a healthy scratch again tells me that he might not be on this roster in a few weeks when Horton comes back.
Yeah, that was interesting to me that Jake Bobo got scratched. Being healthy, being back, I think, Mookie, you're onto something with that. I think he's maybe fallen out of favor in some regards with his ability to function within this offense. And I don't think Jake Bobo's on this roster in 2026, and to your point, he may be off it sooner when Horton comes back. Because is Horton allowed back next week, or is it the week after for Horton?
So when did he get put on IR? We're in week 13. I think they put him on IR at week 12. So that means he would miss before week 12. So that means he missed the Titans game. He's missed this game. So he's going to miss the Falcons and Colts games. I would expect him to miss the Rams game too, though, because that's like you've gone for 4 weeks and then you got a Thursday night game. So I think that he would be back for the Carolina game, at the earliest. The receiver situation where after JSN and Cup and Shaheed, you're going to get Horton back, so that's 4. Cody White is kind of like the wide receiver 4 or 5 when Horton returns. There's just no room for Bobo especially if Derek returns too. So like, you're going to have 7 receivers on this roster. No, you're not. So like, the Bobo thing was fun. He's a meme. He's a jump ball option in the red zone, but like, Cup already does what Bobo does, but better in terms of the blocking. He doesn't return kicks. He doesn't return punts. He has more penalties than catches this year. So I think we've kind of run our course as far as Bobo mania. And we've got other favorites now, to preseason favorites. Like Ty Okada has become like the Bobo of the defense, except more productive.
Agreed. And I think Ty Okada also makes it very interesting what happens with Kobe Bryant in the offseason with his contract situation. But just a fun fact here. So Vikings quarterback QBR in week 12 with JJ McCarthy was 34.2. Max Brosmer was 32.8 today, and if both of those QBs had spiked the ball on every play, it would have been 39.6.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Like, there's Max Hall, there's Ryan Lindley, there's Skylar Thompson last year. I'm just trying to think about some of like the worst Seahawks quarterbacks, opposition quarterbacks.
John Skelton.
Yeah, but Skelton also actually won against Seattle one of those times, wasn't it? The last Arizona game in 2011. There was that one game where they played Skelton.
I'm just thinking of when he came into Seattle and got whooped 52-0.
Yeah, it was the 58-0 game, but they played both. They played Skelton and Lindley, and I think they both got picked multiple times. So, but yeah, Brosmer, maybe he ends up like being a lot better against a not elite defense, but I have no idea what the preseason people were seeing, because like, was he getting the ball out on time? No. Was he accurate? No. Was he? I mean, he couldn't have looked less prepared. I pitied him at the end, like genuinely. Like, he was just getting thrown to the wolves in a lost cause. And you want to talk about an offseason from hell? The Vikings just had that. So like, Darnold didn't have a super revenge game, but Darnold's going to be on a playoff team. They signed Will Fries to that big contract that the Seattle Seahawks wouldn't give him because of the physical thing. And Leonard Williams put Fries in the bag, bro. He got the sack on the opening drive. They paid a lot of money for Ryan Kelly. He's either been concussed or ineffective. They haven't had Darisaw healthy. They spent a lot of money on Hargrave and Jonathan Allen. Like, it's just blown up in their face. And they barely have any draft picks next year. They traded a next year's fourth for Adam Thielen, and he was a healthy scratch today. So Darnold left a 14-3 team, but he left what ended up being a sinking ship to go on a team that's on the ascending.
Totally agree. So, Mookie, we're going to get out of here, but what is some upcoming content that's going on over at Field Goals this week?
Well, after neglecting this last week because there's no fun in poking fun in a 1-10 team like the Titans, now 1-11, but enemy reaction is coming for the Minnesota Vikings, because I have a soft spot for the Vikings, but their fans are really funny. They're lighthearted. So we're going to relive the game through the lens of us and also the lens of them. So you can be on the lookout for that probably Monday afternoon, maybe Monday night. We'll have a film review from Alexander Castro on the Seahawks rookies, and also the good and the bad from the game in general. And we'll also have op-eds from Ted Zahn. In fact, Ted's will come up probably this evening. John Fraley will have his words of praise. Michael Thompson will have his 4-down territory, I believe, on Monday. So we've got loads of op-eds and things for you to digest. In fact, when we're done with this show, I'm going to hop on to our editor and start working on our winners and losers for this game. And not a lot of losers, really, when you win 26-0, but certainly no losers on the defense.
Yeah, there's definitely no losers on this defensive unit. And over here on the Hawks side, we'll have Seahawks Aftermath tomorrow night with Michael Thompson. And I believe Mookie Alexander will be joining us as a kind of a triple header group that will be discussing the Seahawks game after Mike has his press conference and show on 710 tomorrow. We'll bring all the nuggets from that as well and break it all down and kind of look forward to this Falcons matchup coming up later in the week. And then I'll have Jackson Bevins from Cigar Thoughts on the show, as well as Corbin Smith making another return to talk about the Seahawks and where things are going down the back half here in the last quarter bit of the season. So a lot of stuff up here on the Hawk side. So make sure you guys, if you haven't already, like, subscribe to the channel, click that notification button so you don't miss any episodes when they do come out. You can also follow us over on Spotify, and that shows over there as well. And as always, on Field Goals, and go over to Field Goals, check out all the other great content that's being produced over there. So that's a wrap for tonight for me and Mookie. But as always, stay loud, be proud, and go Hawks. Good night, everybody.
Go Hawks.